Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. I'm your host, Bukola, keynote speaker, HR strategist, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience supporting leaders through growth and transition. I'm also a first-generation Nigerian American. My name, Bukola, means added to the greatness in Yoruba, and this podcast is one way I live that out. We're living in a time of constant acceleration. AI, automation, and performance culture push us to go faster and do more. But speed isn't the same as wisdom, and going fast doesn't mean we're moving forward. That's why I created this space to reclaim the human side of leadership. If you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the show and hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss any episode when it drops every other week. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following since day one, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Bukola, and today we're digging into what happens when leadership patterns go unexamined, especially when you've been promoted or invited into rooms you've never been in before. Most people don't fear feedback. They fear being exposed. And when your team doesn't trust your presence, they stop bringing their best ideas. That's not just a culture issue, it's an innovation issue. When it comes to employee turnover, it isn't about compensation. I mean, trust me, compensation matters, but it's more about how people feel around their manager. That's the unspoken economy of leadership. And the wild thing is, most leaders don't even see it happening. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. This episode is part of the SHIFT framework, my method for helping leaders disrupt unconscious patterns so they can lead with more intention, clarity, and influence. Here's a quick reminder of the 5 steps. S stands for slow down and spot the pattern. H is hear the lesson. I is investigate the impact. F is find new ways to shift. And then T is try the shift until you transform. So we're in part 3 today, which is investigate the impact. You know, that moment when you've outgrown your old way of working, but haven't fully stepped into a new way of working yet. This is where self-awareness becomes leadership currency, because what you don't investigate will eventually replicate. Now let's talk about impact. First, let's be clear. Investigating impact doesn't mean defending your intentions. You might sometimes hear at work or at home someone say, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, that wasn't my goal. Those responses are about intent, but impact is different. You see, it's the emotional footprint you leave behind. Even when your heart is in the right place, your leadership pattern might be leaving behind confusion, distance, or quiet resentment. So I want to ask you, what version of you are people responding to? As I've said before, if every room feels tense, maybe it's not the room. And maybe it's not just your team. Maybe it's a pattern you just haven't investigated yet. I want to get personal for a minute. So I grew up in a childhood filled with disruption, a lot of surprises, and I'm not talking about like balloons and parties. I remember I hated that feeling of being unequipped or being blindsided with no backup plan. It was kind of like I wasn't prepared. So in that moment, I remember I was like 12 years old. I promised myself I would never be caught off guard again. Like I remember telling myself that. And that led to a life of discipline, structure, and order. I became the person who prepared for every meeting, every milestone, every possible reaction. And at first, even when I look at my time in team sports and early in my career as a leader, really at first, that served me. It served me really well. But then as I started to move up, I started to see my role grow and my responsibilities grow. And that's when it started to go too far, because preparation became over preparation. And then it started to bump up against early stages of control. So I walked into every situation with my armor zipped up, thinking if I could just out-prepare the moment, I'd never be exposed. But over-preparing doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it keeps you from seeing what's right in front of you. And that's what I want us to explore today, how the patterns we created for survival may now be limiting our growth. Let's go ahead and touch on a stat. According to the Corporate Leadership Council, leaders who regularly reflect on their performance and make space for continuous improvement increase their effectiveness by up to 20%. Now, that's not about overthinking. It's about pattern awareness, the discipline to ask what worked, what didn't, and what can I evolve? Because leadership doesn't get better through perfection. It really gets better through intentional reflection. Now, let me tell you about a coaching story that involves a woman by the name of Jasmine. Her company had hired me to work with her shortly after her promotion. So she's a director of operations at a retail tech company, and she's considered the one who gets things done, the executor, the fixer, the safe pair of hands. I sat down with Jasmine and, let me just go through the dialogue. So Jasmine, you've been in these new leadership meetings for a while now. Tell me what's been coming up for you. Honestly, I'm in the room, I have the seat, but I'm not saying anything. Everyone else is throwing out big ideas, and I just feel like I don't belong. I don't want to say the wrong thing and confirm what they already think, that I'm tactical, not strategic. Oh, where did you get that from? I mean, when they gave me the job, they told me this role would be more strategic, not just tactical, and that I'd need to grow in some areas. They didn't say I wasn't good, just that I'd need to stretch. But I took that to mean they don't really see me that way. Okay, but at the end of the day, you were promoted and they're investing in you now, which says they believe in you. And just like you practiced being tactical for years when you were hands-on, now it's just about practicing a new muscle, which is building strategic thinking. That's all. Jasmine said, I didn't look at it that way. Let's go back to the last meeting, Jasmine. When you think about that moment, what do you wish you had said? Jasmine said, There was a part where they were talking about vendor dynamics, and I actually had a solid idea. I didn't say it. Okay. What would it have taken for you to share your ideas in the moment? Honestly, I was so intimidated. My boss was in the room and his boss was in the room, and I was so stressed out and I felt frazzled. I wasn't even present. I just kind of zoned out. Okay, totally normal. That doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means you're being stretched. You're dealing with some change and some discomfort. But if you want to move up or move into other roles in leadership, this is going to continue to come up. So it's something that you have to decide if you want to take this on so that when it comes up, you're prepared to handle it. Yes, I do. I want to take it on. I'm just scared. Okay, that's reasonable. You've had years to practice being hands-on, and this new role asks for something different of you. But it's clear they believe in you, they trust you, they promoted you, and brought me in to support you. So they're saying we value you, but now show us you can close these gaps. So let's go back. What would it really take for you to bring your ideas forward next time? Think back to that meeting. What would it take in that moment? I think I'd have to feel calm and courageous. Okay. Well, you talked about feeling frazzled. So, have you done deep breathing before? I found deep breathing can really help calm folks down. We can practice that now. Just take a moment, take a deep breath, plant your feet, in and out, and feel that in your body, in your chest, in your posture. Okay, beautiful. So now tell me whether that gets close to what calm and courageous feels like. I do feel better with the deep breathing, and I feel like I'm not overthinking as much anymore. Okay. Well, how about you practice that some more just to start to feel more grounded, and then you can continue on your own to start to get in touch with what does calm and courageous feel like, because it's going to be important for you to tap into that when you need to. Because these moments can come up unexpectedly, but it sounds like you felt what it felt like before in that meeting. So as it's coming up, as long as you practice this, you should be able to tap into that and stay focused in the moment and present in the moment. How do you feel about that? Yeah, great. Okay. So the other thing that I want to talk about is just really making sure you're able to prepare and use some time in advance to really reflect before the meeting, and then I'd like you to reflect even after the meeting. So we already talked about really getting in touch with what it means to be calm and courageous, your breathing. I also want you to visualize what calm and courageous looks like. But in terms of the prep, there are certain things that are available to you, right? Yeah, typically they give the agenda, and those are details that if I have questions about, I can get beforehand. I was like, okay, so that's a plan. That's a plan. When's the next meeting? It's Thursday. Okay. So for that Thursday meeting, how about we go ahead and get you to practice going through some of these different tips and tools that we've talked through today. From there, I'd like you to jot down what you're noticing about yourself before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. Now, for the meeting, I want you to focus on staying present and leave space to listen, but definitely want you to capture at the end what you're noticing are the areas that you saw that worked, what didn't work, and what you can do better for next time. Okay. And you can bring that to our next session. How does that feel? Oh, that sounds reasonable. I can do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and plan for that. I want to make sure you keep this in mind that just, leadership, it's a process. It's not like you're behind. There wasn't a special class in kindergarten or anything. You're just becoming the leader that you want to be. So just, give yourself some grace. Okay. Thanks, Bukola. All right, Jasmine, you got this. I'll see you soon. All right, so that was the discussion with Jasmine. And you can see there's so many different variables that can happen when you're promoted, you're in the room with your manager and your manager's manager, and you're trying to come up with all these different ways to perform. So let me say this again. The moment you notice the pattern, that's really the moment you can take back your power. That's what investigating impact really does. It gives you your power back. Now, I want to touch on science because I like to touch on science. So when we think about the brain, we can feel emotionally threatened. And that's the amygdala in the brain that triggers this fight or flight or freeze mode. So we defend, we shut down when this happens. And that's why so many leaders can resist feedback. They're not necessarily being arrogant. I mean, sometimes maybe there are cases where leaders are arrogant, but a lot of times the resisting of the feedback comes because no one taught them how to receive it. Another stat I want to give you is that only 10% of leaders proactively seek feedback, and that's according to Zanger and Folkman. Why? Because it was never modeled. If your early managers avoided feedback, there's a chance that you probably did too. And then now your team may be doing the same, watching you. So that's not just a habit, it's really, like a legacy without even realizing. I want to take it to pop culture. So Trevor Noah, some of you may know him. Trevor Noah grew up in apartheid, South Africa, a biracial child in a deeply segregated world. He learned to read the room, shift his tone, adjust his jokes just to stay safe. It made him a master observer, but it also left him wondering, do people know the real me or the version I created to survive? That same thing happens in leadership. You see, our coping can become our character. And if we never examine those patterns, we build teams where survival is more important than connection. I want to take it to a corporate story next. Let's talk about Uber. Okay, we had a leader, Travis Kalanick. He was running Uber actually at the beginning. And Travis had a technical background, very brilliant, relentless, bold, and disruptive. No experience on the leadership development side, but technically an expert. His leadership left behind lawsuits, burnout, and a toxic culture. Now, Uber scaled fast at great cost. He never slowed down, though, to ask, how is my leadership impacting the people building this company? Now, eventually he was pushed out, and Dara Khosrowshahi stepped in. So it was the same company, different leadership pattern, different impact. Now, if you're navigating race, I want to touch on this because if you're navigating race, gender, cultural expectations, another factor that you may notice is that you could be caught up in a pattern of over-functioning or silence. That's not your personality, that's survival. But survival still impacts your team. Just one moment of reflection can widen your lens and shift your legacy. So let's do a recap. So Jasmine wasn't unsure. She was protecting an old identity. I over-prepared to avoid chaos, but narrowed my lens. Trevor Noah shows how coping can cause connection. Travis versus Dara, same company, different results. Ask yourself these reflection prompts. What behavior used to serve me but doesn't anymore? What's one pattern my team sees in me that I haven't named yet? And if I show up like the leader I'm becoming, what ends up getting louder? These are just a few thoughts to keep in mind to help you practice that reflection we talked about. Remember, you're not here to stay stuck. You're here to evolve, whether it's life or work. If this episode sparks something for you, this is exactly the work I support in coaching and workshops. I invite you to visit me on bukolagantala.com to learn more about the tools and resources and ways that I support leaders and teams. Let's shift the habits that no longer fit us and leave from a place that works. That's all I've got. Have a good week, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can text or leave a voicemail at 404-828-0279. That's 404-828-0279. Or you can visit me at bukolaogantala.com to send in a question, share your story, or explore coaching and speaking services. Whether you're leading a team or learning to lead yourself, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so we can keep growing together.